Hey everybody, St. Paul Peterson here, and welcome to episode 63 of Music on the Run. Happy summer. This one is so special to me. My next guest is a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's won a ton of Grammys, and I actually replaced him in More Stay in the Time back in 1983. My guest, Jimmy Jam Harris, is next on Music on the Run.
Hey everybody, how you doing, Nam? Let me hear you. Thank you all for being here. This is St. Paul Peterson. Paul Peterson's my name. Prince gave me the nickname St. Paul back in 1985, and we had a lot of fun. That's when I was singing in a group called The Family. Welcome to Music on the Run, live from the NAMM show in the Electro Voice booth. I want to hear you one more time and prove that we actually have some humans in this room. For those of you listening at home, the NAMM show, you probably don't know what that is. It's the National Association of Music Merchants, and it's the biggest music convention in the U.S. And this is day 3, is that right? Day 3 in NAMM, and we're lucky enough to be at the Electro Voice booth. We are so honored to come back here. We were here right before COVID, and we are so glad to be back. So thank you to Michael and your team. I've got my producer, Davide Razzo, in the back, making sure that everything sounds good. Couple of things before we get going. To be able to hear this podcast, just go to my social media, St. Paul Peterson, or go to musicontheRunpodcast.com. I also have another series that you got to know about because it's really cool. For the last consecutive 202 weeks, I've done a 1-minute little funky song, and the series is called A Funk Friday. And I've had over 240 world-class musicians just play for the sake of playing and to share their gift with all you guys out there. We don't do it for anything other than the love of playing music with each other. So every single Friday, we put out a little funk. We got to make the internet a little bit funkier, 1 minute at a time. So check that out. It's all on my social media as well. Does that sound all right? Yeah. Okay. Man, I am so looking forward to this. My next guest is from my hometown of Minneapolis. In tandem with Terry Lewis, they've had more #1 hits than any other songwriting production duo in history. He and I share some musical history together, and I'm really proud to call him my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, 5-time Grammy Award winner, songwriting and rock and roll Hall of Famer, Jimmy Jam.
Good. Yes, sir.
How was the trip in?
It was wonderful because I have a Tesla that drives itself.
You don't know how badly I want a Tesla, but I'm not sure I'm ready for the self-driving thing. Does that really work?
Yeah, it works, but it keeps you in check. Like it only works for a little while, and then it like starts buzzing and beeping and stuff to wake you up and go,
that
or
would
get
make
off
me
your phone. And,
I'm not taking my hands off the wheel. I'm sorry.
No. It's good, but I've had it long enough where I know. I've had it for like 5 years now, so I know that there's certain roads that it just doesn't know, and there's some common sense stuff that you still got to keep alert.
Yeah, but the biggest question is, can you fit a set of drums in the back of a Tesla?
A set.
You don't need to, but I need to.
You can fit a drum machine in there. I don't know about a drum set.
That's a good answer. I was going to try to do a big intro. The man who brought you Janet. The man who brought you Michael. Alex O'Neill. I couldn't do my James Brown. I didn't get it together in time. So I had to do it live for you right there.
I love it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Man, it's so good to have you here.
It's nice to be here, man.
We're both from Minneapolis.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. You're a couple of years older. I think you're Ricky's age, my brother Ricky's age.
What's your brother Ricky's age?
He's 6'5".
Oh, okay. Well, I'm 6'4".
You're 6. Oh, he's got you by a year. Okay.
Yep.
All right. And you and I were both in the Prince camp at different times.
Yes, we were.
We were. So our paths really didn't cross until a couple of years ago. Really?
Yes.
Of course, I knew of you. You probably heard of the Peterson family, and
By the way, I'm just going to say, because he's too humble to say it, the Peterson family, when I talk about musical royalty, I'm talking about in Minneapolis, the Peterson family was the family everybody aspired to either be a part of or to be like.
Wow.
I mean, the most talented family ever, and he's just one part of it, but I'm telling you, the whole family from the top down, absolutely amazing.
thank you, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I wasn't expecting that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's true.
Coming to NAMM for you, do you get to come and check out the gear?
I do.
You do?
I pretty much come every year. It's been weird with the last few years because obviously we had the COVID part of it where it didn't happen, and then I know it switched around from June to April or whatever. We were kind of trying to figure it out. But no, I do like to come. I like to see it, and also it's an opportunity to meet people who you admire. Who normally, if you're kind of sequestered in the studio all the time, you don't get a chance to do it. And a lot of times, the only time I'll meet people like that will be at a, more of a charity event or some sort of thing where it's just kind of bumping heads. But to do it and I'm a nerd as far as gear and stuff.
Yeah, I bet you are.
Yeah, so it's cool to meet over the gear and actually have the stuff there. So it's a different crowd, and it's one it's the musical community to me.
I come here for the hang. I mean,
The hang
gear
is perfect, yeah.
fantastic, but it's so fun to run into fellow bass players. Bass players don't ever get to hang out together. So
Yeah.
this is fun to see your drummer friends, bass player friends, and then, of course, check out the new gear. You and I started off with the Oberheims, the Lindrums,
Yes.
the 808s, and all that stuff.
Yep.
Do you still have all that stuff
We still have every piece of equipment that we've ever used
in the warehouse?
to record. Yeah, like literally, if you come to our studio and people will say, hey, can you pull out the Lindrum? Can you pull out the whatever? And we'll pull out the Lindrum, but it'll be the Lindrum that actually played on Control. Or the DMX that actually played on, well, actually the DMX is at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but the DMX that actually played on Saturday Love, Alexander O'Neill and Sherelle and that kind of thing. And we have the OB8s and all that stuff. Yeah, we have all of that. We enjoy using it still.
How does technology influence how you make music?
It's totally different. Terry and I always say we love at the point we grew up, literally everything was analog tape.
Right.
And it gave you discipline because you had 24 tracks, and so whatever you were doing, you had to fit into those 24 tracks. Of course, nowadays, it's an unlimited number of tracks.
Sometimes that's a bad thing.
That's a bad thing.
Yes, it is.
Because you don't have any, anything to kind of guide you and to kind of go, there's a start and there's a finish. So you can just keep recording and recording and recording. I was talking to somebody the other day about when we did, as a matter of fact, it was Questlove. Questlove texted me last night, and he was listening to the song History, which is Michael Jackson's song, right? And I was telling him when we mixed that song, this was still before like Pro Tools and stuff, but we had digital tape machines, right?
Yep.
We had 48-track Sony machines. We literally had 4 Sony machines synced together, and there wasn't a board that was big enough to handle it. So we were at Larrabee North, and it was literally 2 rooms and the boards because Michael didn't want us to bounce anything down. We were like, can we take? And on that particular song, we had Boyz II Men was on the song.
Right.
We had like an 80-piece orchestra. We had all these different things. And we said, can we just consolidate all this stuff down? And Michael never wanted to consolidate everything down.
I wonder why.
Just in case he wanted to change his mind about a balance or something like that. But it's like, no. In the moment, just do it. And that's what we were used to doing. So we got the record mixed, but it was really tough. But that was my first kind of glimpse of it could be dangerous, or not dangerous, but you have to still be in the mindset to make the decisions. And normally your first gut decisions are the best ones anyway.
Yeah.
We very rarely go back and redo stuff. It's kind of like, no, in the moment, that's what it should be.
But you know what's funny that I notice about your and Terry's productions, that they're simple somehow in the fact that they serve the song. So don't get me wrong, they're beautiful. What you do with them, And if you do things outside of the norm, they fit in such a beautiful way. But there is a focus on every single record I've seen and heard you make. Is that an intentional thing for you as a producer?
Yeah, I think the reason we became producers anyway was because we were songwriters first. Okay. And so when we would write the song, we felt like we could either try to tell somebody kind of the way we were hearing that it was supposed to be, what kind of drums and what kind of keyboards and that, or we could just do it ourselves. And we luckily we met a guy named Leon Silvers III, who basically just let us in the studio and said, go create.
What year is this?
This is 82.
No,
because 81 was the time. That was the first time year.
Right.
But before that, Terry and I, we would go in the studio, and growing up in Minneapolis, we actually had separate bands. I had a band called Mind and Matter. It was kind of a singing group type thing. Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep. So we're talking this is 70s now. We're talking 76-ish, 75,
Really?
76, yeah. So I had a singing group, Mind and Matter. Terry had Flight Time. The band was called Flight Time.
Right.
And it was basically everybody from the time, with the exception of me and Jesse Johnson, who were like the last people to join, right?
Okay.
And Morris, of course, had his own band that was called the Enterprise Band of Pleasure. But of course it was, because it's Morris Day, right?
Oh my God! But was he singing at that time or
no,
playing
he
drums?
was the drummer.
Yeah.
He was the drummer in the band.
All right.
And Morris, by the way, speaking of instruments and stuff, and getting drums in the back of Teslas, Morris is world-class drummer.
He really is.
I mean,
man.
he's one of the best drummers ever. And it's interesting. His drum, guru, like the person he grew up loving on the drums, was David Garibaldi
from Tower
Power.
Right, yeah. I can hear that a mile away.
And so a lot of people don't know that when you hear 777-9311 by the time,
yeah,
that's not a live drummer. That's actually a drum machine beat in the Lin that was programmed by David Garibaldi.
There it is. I've been waiting to hear that from the source for a long time. People have asked me that question forever, and it was before my time. And I've heard that story, and I'm glad to hear it's true.
Yeah, no, that's what it was. So anyway, we all had different bands and different stuff. So to get back to the production thing, our whole thing was always, let's have the opportunity. If we ever got the opportunity to do it, we'd always listen to records and go, oh, we could do that better, or we think we can,
right,
type of thing.
Because we're young and cocky, and we think we can do everything.
I mean, you figure you can do something. Because at that point, nobody's telling you you can't do it.
True.
It's like you're in your own mind at that point, right? Mm-hmm. But we were lucky. So Leon Silvers III, this was in 82. So in 81 was the first time tour. When that tour ended in 82, I remember Terry saying, I'm going to LA, who's coming with me?
Wow.
And at that time, for those of you that remember this, the new big hot item was a VCR.
Oh, wow.
And literally, everybody had saved all their per diem and all their money to buy a VCR.
Wow.
And that's what they said to Terry. They said, "No, man, I ain't going to LA. I'm buying a VCR." So I said to Terry, I said, "Well, I'll go." And Terry said, "Cool." And I said, "Where are we going to stay, Terry?" "Oh, we'll figure it out."
No kidding.
I said, "What are we going to do out there?" "We're going to make demo tapes." I said, "Where are we going to get the equipment to make demo tapes?" "Oh, we'll figure it out." That was Terry's line for everything. We'll figure it out.
And you did.
And I just trusted Terry. I just kind of trusted him. I mean, this is before the internet. So we went in the classifieds, found a little 4-track machine. Terry had his bass. I had this little Casio keyboard that had a little drum machine in it.
Yeah.
And we'd sit in this house. We met some people from Minneapolis that had a little house. We had a room that was probably about as big as this area, 2 cots.
Yeah.
And Terry and I would sit and just make demos all day. That's all we do. Wow. And that's how we started out. We didn't have a car. We would walk to this place called Golden Bird Chicken. They had a $2.99 4-piece special. That's what we ate every day because that was in our budget.
Lord.
And that's how we started off. But Leon was the one that put us in the studio. We played with him in a celebrity basketball game. And
this is how you met
afterwards,
Leon?
That's where we met Leon. So we met Leon like 82.
And you knew who he was, obviously.
Oh, from the Silvers, yeah.
Yeah.
But at the time, he was like the biggest producer. He was producing The Whispers and Shalimar and all these great records. And so he heard our demo tape. We came over and we played our demo tape. And the other person that was there that day at the studio that we played him our demo tape was a guy named John McClain. And John McClain was the A&R guy at A&M Records.
Wow.
Okay?
No way.
So they heard our tape. Dick Griffey at Solar Records, who was the head of Solar Records at the time, he heard our tape. And the other person that heard our tape was Clarence Avant, the Black Godfather. And everybody picked different songs from the tape. That was the interesting thing. We had like 10 songs on the tape, and everybody liked a different song.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that got us going.
That's a good problem to have.
That's a good problem to have. And so everybody knows that, I think most people know the story that we were fired by Prince.
We're getting to that.
Oh, okay, well.
Wait, because I play a piece in that one. Well,
okay, yeah.
no, go ahead.
Yeah,
No.
you definitely have a piece
I'll
in that.
interject. Don't
Okay.
worry. Please.
So that summer, like I say, we met Leon Silvers, we met Clarence Avant, we met all these different people. So Clarence, when we met him, he called us the Two Thugs. Because we had our well, I don't have my fedora on today,
Yeah.
but we had our fedoras on and our suits.
You were ready
and he
to
said,
roll.
Who's these two thugs from Minneapolis coming in here? But we had done a song, Leon had cut one of our songs, a song called High Hopes for the SOS Band. And so when we met with Clarence, Clarence said, you guys did that High Hopes song. And we said, yeah. And he said, that's a good song. And we said, yeah, the demo was better. He said, let me hear the demo.
You said that?
Yeah.
Woo,
And
that's
we said,
some cojones.
and we played him the demo. And he loved the demo. And he said, I want you guys to do a couple songs on the SOS Band on the next record.
That
We
was
said,
it.
great. We said, cool. So when we were on tour with the Time now on the, this is the 1999 tour.
Right.
We have 4 days off in New York. And our next gig after that is in San Antonio, Texas. So we figure we'll go down to Atlanta and cut these SOS Band songs, right?
Did we tell your boss that you were doing this?
No,
at that time?
Prince
Okay.
actually told us, don't produce any other
So what do
records
you
on
do?
anybody
when-
else.
What do? You go down to Atlanta and produce somebody.
We didn't get the philosophy of that because we felt like we weren't. I know his thing was that we were going to give away the Time sound, and we were like,
Right.
no, why? We wouldn't do that. We
Right.
wouldn't want to, cut off our own thing. But we felt like we were going to make ourselves better. If we're getting better, we're making the team better. It's almost like an off-season workout for us. Is the way
course.
we looked at it. So we go down to Atlanta. At the day we're going to leave to go to the San Antonio gig, it snows. We're on our way to the airport. So there's the snowstorm. And by the way, snowstorm, for us in the Midwest, it was what we would call a dusting of snow.
Right.
We would take you wouldn't even need a shovel. You just take a broom and just sweep it, right?
Yeah.
Closes the airport down.
Of course it does,
So
yeah.
now we're in Atlanta airport. We're trying to get on any flight out of there. This is before GPS. This is before any of that stuff. So we couldn't even go, well, what airport is open? We'll just drive there. Like we tried to get the rent-a-car back to drive to an airport that was open,
Sure.
but we didn't know what airport was open. So we were totally stranded. We end up missing the gig. Prince fills in. Prince plays the bass, I think, from backstage, and I think Matt Fink plays. He knows the keyboard parts and stuff,
Right.
and Lisa and them. So they figured it out, right? When we finally got there, Prince thought we had gone down to see some girls in Atlanta.
Okay.
And he said, that's what you get for going down and seeing those girls. And we were like, okay, Prince, cool.
Yeah.
The thing that undid it was about a week later in Billboard magazine, there was a picture of us and the SOS Band.
Oh.
And I swear to God, we were trying to hide every Billboard magazine we could find. Like Prince would kept going, where's my billboard? Where's my billboard? And we were like, oh, we don't know, Prince. We were like tossing it in trash cans. It was crazy. And of course, eventually he found out.
Yeah.
So when the tour finally ended, the night we were going to mix the SOS Band song, Prince calls us and he goes, meet me at Sunset Sound. And we said, okay. So when we got to Sunset Sound, the accountant was there.
Oh.
And our first thought was, oh, we're going to get our last checks. He's going to fire us. But the accountant just walked by us and said, you guys have a good session. We said, okay.
Yeah.
So we get in a room. The room's about this big. It's Terry, myself, Jesse Johnson, Morris Day, and Prince. And Prince just goes, I told you guys not to produce other records.
Yep.
We said, mm-hmm. And you produced the SOS Band. We said, yeah. So you're fired. So I got up. I was like, okay, cool. And I walked out.
That was it.
Terry stayed in there a little bit, tried to reason with him a little bit. So eventually Terry comes out, and we're kind of looking at each other, and, well, what do you want to do? And we said, well, I guess we'll go to the other studio and mix the SOS Band record.
Wow.
So literally the night we were fired at Sunset Sound, we went over to Larrabee.
Right.
We walked in. The engineer was Steve Hodge, and Steve Hodge was Leon Silver's engineer, who had mixed the Whispers and Shalimar and all that. Only reason, we had never met him, but we knew him because of the liner notes on the records.
Yeah.
We said, Steve Hodge at Larrabee, let's go get him to mix. We walk in, we say, hey, Steve, how you doing? Good. How you guys? We're good. He said, you guys seem a little down. And we said, yeah, we just got fired from the Time. He said, you did? We said, yeah. He said, well, I don't think you have anything to worry about. He said, because this record here, this is a smash. And he hits play, and Just Be Good to Me comes out those big speakers. And the rest is history.
Were you, at that point, planning or talking with Terry about going, this is a good team here. Maybe we should think about leaving the Time and doing this. Or was this when you got liberated from the Time?
No, we never wanted to leave the Time.
You wanted to do both things.
We wanted to do both things. In our minds, and it's one of the things, we don't really have any regrets as we look back at our lives. But one of the things I feel sorry about is we could have done everything that we did as Jam and Lewis in the Prince umbrella, under the Paisley Park umbrella. That all could have been the same things.
So what got in the way of that, in your opinion?
I think two things. I think the first thing was that I think Prince wanted to control what was happening. Matter of fact, I know he wanted to control what was happening. But I also think, and there is a bit of an epilogue to the story, because we would still go to the accountant. We'd get a little check every week. And so we go to the accountant and pick up our check.
Little check.
A little check.
I know about the little check.
Okay. Do you still have, I think I still have, I've been trying to find it. I think I still have my first. By the way, the first check I got from the Time, it was $150.
I made $100 more than you.
Okay. But it was a little later, though. Inflation,
like
right?
10, inflation. That's right.
But no, but after the taxes got taken out, my check was literally $117.
$197 over here.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Right? Gold record on my wall, $117 in my pocket per week.
Yes.
And it was the craziest thing. So that's what I remember. And we got bumped up the next year. I think we got bumped up to $250 a week.
Wow, that's...
And then we got $200 a week per diem because we were the backing band for Vanity 6.
Right.
So we were in the money then, $450 a week. Come on now.
So give me that answer about why you think you should have.
Okay, so there was a little bit, right? So there was a little bit of epilogue. So what it is we'd go to the accountant, we'd get our check every week, and then one day we walked in the accountant, and they said, "Oh, we can't give you your checks anymore." And we said, "Why?" And they said, "We heard you were fired." And we were like, "We were fired like a month ago. Where'd you hear we were fired?" And they said, "Oh, it was just on the radio, Lee Bailey, Radioscope." And I remember Lee Bailey had interviewed us backstage and said, "I heard you're fired from the Time." And we're like, "What are you talking about?" Right? So anyway, that was the reason. At that point in time, Prince had Jelly Bean, who's probably the one person that's known Terry longer than me.
Yeah.
Jelly Bean Johnson called Terry, and he called Terry and he said to Terry, "Hey man, Prince wants you to come back." And Terry said, "Cool, okay. What you guys got going?" "Oh, we're going to do a movie, blah, blah, blah." "Okay, great. What about Jimmy?" "Oh, he doesn't want him back."
What?
Yeah. And so Terry said, excuse my language, "You tell that little motherfucker." I was like, "Terry, no." I said, "Go." I said, I'll wait for you, man. Just do your thing." He said, no. And basically that solidified us. You know, I've known Terry for 50 years this year.
Wow.
So it's like, that was the thing that really solidified us. But the other piece of it was, besides, I think, Prince wanting the control, I think Prince knew we were ready to go. It's like when the bird gets pushed out the nest.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, "I know you're going to fly, so I'm going to push you out. It's time for you to go."
Did he ever say that to you?
No, he never said that.
He never said that?
No, he never said that.
Okay.
But I felt that. But the other piece of it, I do know, there were certain people he didn't want to leave. and you're one of those.
Interesting.
It was, and I know this, I didn't know as it was happening, but I know now that when you decided to leave, that was like the worst thing in his life.
Whoa.
Because I don't really know. I mean, I know the reason why, because obviously your talent and all of that. But I think there were some people, if you think about it, there were some people that left or he let go, and it was a big, but there were some people who he was like, no, don't go. Mm-hmm. And I know, and I don't know the detail of it, but I know he tried everything to get you to stay at that point in time, or at least that's what I'm told anyway.
Well, this is fascinating to me because we've never talked about this.
Right.
In our friendship.
That's right.
Yeah, that was a very interesting period. Let's go back for 2 seconds and let me tell you my side of what happened.
Yes.
Because when you left, when you got fired from the band,
as Terry Lewis, my partner, likes to say, freed.
You got liberated. You got
freed.
Yeah. I got a call to replace him in the time. So this is very crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, so I get this gig. I'm a 17-year-old kid from Richfield, suburbia, who had a lot to learn about the Prince camp, right? And for me, that was a unbelievable way to start my career.
Yeah.
So by you leaving or getting fired, whatever you want to call it, I was given a gift. That's the way I look at what happened there, and everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
I totally believe that.
Absolutely.
You were supposed to do that and leave and produce and do and move on to everything that you were supposed to do.
Yes.
And the opportunity that came to me was that you can't make this up.
Yeah.
You cannot make this up. So
by the way, the worst day of our lives was, at that point in our lives, was literally the snowstorm in Atlanta. Because as we were there, and we're going, why is this happening to us? Like, we didn't get it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But of course, looking back on it, it was the pivotal moment of our career. And now I always look at things like that.
Totally.
When I don't understand why they're happening, I know that there's a reason. You know, whether you want to call it God's plan or whatever you want to, however you want to term it, there's a bigger plan than what you see. And sometimes you just have to go with it. And that's the thing. I always go back to that moment. Whenever something weird happens, I always go back to that snowstorm and I go, okay, there's a reason this is happening. I just got to stay in present, stay in the moment, let it happen, and there's a reason. It'll show itself later on. I'll look back on it and go, oh, because hindsight's 20/20. You can always look back and go, oh, of course. So that's what I always think about.
I've wanted to ask this question to Jimmy for 40 years. You were a band of brothers, right? The time. When you got fired and you see these 3 people who are not brothers, meaning they weren't in that family, right? Of whom grew up together, come into the fold like that in Purple Rain, in the time. I mean, your band. Was that bittersweet for you? I know Morris didn't like it because he was never at rehearsal. And I know why now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like that either if some little shit from down the street was replacing Jimmy Jam. I get that. I wouldn't like that either. But what was your feeling? Was that weird? Was it bittersweet? Were you like, oh, this isn't really the time? What was that experience like for you?
It was, bittersweet would probably sum it up. And I can tell you that Morris's thing was that he didn't, if you think about it, Morris, as far as he was concerned, it was his band, except it wasn't really his band because at the end of the day, Prince was the one that was calling the shots. So I think there was that. And I think that he never liked when bands, just as a fan of bands, he never liked when members switched. Because we used to talk about like Tower of Power when the lead singer changed. You know, it's like, no, we need Lenny Williams there, for Tower of Power. And so that was his first thought, was he didn't even like the idea of the band having different people in it. He understood business-wise that it had to continue and they were going to do the movie.
Right.
So it wasn't anything personal against you guys.
Of course not. Yeah.
It was more just the idea that was something he had always hated in his life. It was interesting for me because Jungle Love, which was Jesse Johnson's track, The Bird, which was a studio track originally, and there was a couple of other songs that Prince has put out, "Fill You Up" and "Irresistible Bitch" and some of these other songs. That was the Next Time album. And we knew that because we would be sitting on the bus and Prince would come on our bus, on our tour bus, and he'd say, "Listen to this," and he'd play a song and he'd be, "This is going to be your next record," and we'd be like, "Okay, cool," you know.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that was weird then hearing, you know, I mean, you guys obviously the live versions of it, but it was weird hearing like the live versions of The Bird and Jungle Love because it's like, yeah, we'd done those records like a year ago or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So that was kind of interesting. But I was a fan. I didn't know Mark. He was the other keyboard player, right?
Mark.
And then it was was it Rocky Garrity first?
He started
bass
at
player?
first, and then he got late. It was late for the first filming of Purple Rain, and,
Yep, and
he
he
was
was out.
fired immediately.
Yeah.
Then they
And it was-
hired. I mean, immediately.
Immediately, yeah.
That's the way
Yeah.
they rolled back
Yeah.
then. They weren't going to put up with that.
Yeah.
God bless Rocky. I miss him. What a great job.
Yeah, he was great.
Jerry Hubbard came.
Jerry
on.
Hubbard came in as a bass player. By the way, Rocky was, when I was growing up, Rocky was a drummer, not
He
a
was
bass
a
player.
great drummer.
He was an incredible drummer. He played
Wa-
with a band called Cohesion.
Yes,
Back
I
in the
have
day.
one small Rocky story.
Okay.
So Rocky and I were in the time. Rocky didn't have a car, so I'd come by and pick up Rocky, no problem.
Yep.
And he'd go, "Thank you, Paul. We're going to stop by." And then Lake Calhoun used to have the beach
Yes.
where you could pull in.
You pull
the
in
Black Beach. they
That's
called
right.
it.
That's absolutely
You
right.
know what I'm talking
Oh,
about,
I
right?
certainly
okay,
do.
So
Sure, yeah.
what do I know about that? So he's
Yeah.
like, "I'm going to take you somewhere. I'm going to buy you a beer for taking me home." I'm like, back in those days, I'm like, cool,
Yeah.
beer. I love beer. So we pull in there, and we pull over, and he said, "I'm going to buy you a beer. Can I borrow a couple dollars so I can buy you a beer?" That's what Rocky
Yeah,
did.
that's right. That's
God
absolutely
bless
right.
him, man.
That's him.
You got to love
That's
Rocky,
it.
though.
I
Yeah.
love that, man. So.
Man. So looking back on that, it was bittersweet as a fair
It was
word.
it was bittersweet, but it was funny because I remember Terry and I, we came to when you guys did, I think you guys played Detroit. I want to say Purple Rain tour.
I never toured with a time.
You didn't?
I rehearsed for like 9 months and did one gig. And then when I was in the family,
Yeah.
I rehearsed for 9 months and did one gig.
What was the one gig? Where was it?
First Avenue.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
When we taped the live stuff
Yeah,
for
that's right.
Purple Rain.
Oh,
that was
that's
all
right.
I
That's
got.
it.
I never toured with a time.
Oh. Well, it's funny because we went to, okay, so maybe I just remember Morris and everybody being there. Not everybody, but Morris was there, Bean was there. But we went to Detroit to see, I guess, Prince when he did the Purple Rain tour, which I think it might have been the first city.
I was there. Yeah.
Okay, so what I remember was we were in this little room, or this like a hotel room and stuff, and everybody was just kind of gathered and hanging out and stuff. And Prince said something to Terry along the lines of, "I'm filling up my bank account, Terry Lewis, what are you doing?" And I swear to God, Terry walked out the room. He like banned Prince from his house. Like you couldn't play any Prince music in his house, like for the longest time.
So
He
what was that? What was that competition thing? Did Prince
I
turn
don't
that
know.
into a competition between your camp, and then his camp? It kind of became that, right?
Yeah, I think so, and I don't know. I mean, maybe it was just, it was weird though because I never felt, I'm not a competitive person by nature. I like to see everybody do well. I mean, I'm going to try to do the best I can do.
Right.
But I don't think someone else doing something ever takes away from what I'm doing. So I never felt that, but I do feel like Prince kind of felt like the competition part was good. And it was a love-hate thing.
That's true.
Because it was funny. So Prince would, I remember on the first tour, we would notice things like, we came out and we did very well on that first tour, the Controversy tour.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that our stage would get smaller. We'd have less lights all of a sudden.
Right.
We'd have no sound checks ever again.
Right.
Matter of fact, we did our show. Our sound check was literally, we called it the first minute of our show was sound check.
Sure.
Because we did The Stick as the first song.
Right.
The Stick was, if you remember that song, anybody remembers that song, the first thing was nothing but drums.
Yeah.
It was like, ooh, my stick. I just love my stick. Okay, so while that's happening, the sound man's getting the drums together.
Sounds like a St. Paul tour.
Yeah, right? And literally, and Morris would just turn his back to the audience and just comb his hair with a spotlight on it until we got the drums sounding right.
That's perfect.
And then we'd go into and hopefully the keyboards and everything else would be
Right.
good. And then one day I remember showing up, I had a beautiful four-voice Oberheim, which is, for me, still the holy grail of Oberheim synthesizers. All of a sudden it was gone, replaced with an OBSX.
Oh.
And I'm like going, what happened to the other thing? And Don Batts, who was our
Yeah, I remember
keyboard
Don.
tech.
Sure.
And Don, he said, oh, this is the new thing. We're going to, whatever. And I couldn't get a decent sound out of that thing to save our life. But our bass sound, like on Cool and on Get It Up and that four-voice, man. And it's like, so little things would happen like that. And it was a competition. And I remember the second tour was really funny because I remember Prince, he always had Morris still wear the same, we called it the Presley, the jacket that Morris wore.
Yeah, yeah.
He'd have him wear that same jacket. And Morris would go, man, Prince, I need a new Presley, man. I need a new Presley. And Prince said, no, that's what you got to wear that one. You got to wear that one. So Morris he just said, I'm getting my own Presley, right? So after one gig that we particularly kicked ass, I can't remember what city it was. Morris has got his new Presley, right? But it's still in the hanger
Plastic
suit,
or
in the
whatever.
box,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And so Prince comes backstage and he says something like, oh, you guys were pretty good tonight, or something like that. And he said, hey, Prince, I want to show you something. And he said, Jerome, give me my thing. And so Jerome comes out with the jacket in a bag, right? He unzips the jacket and he goes, Prince, I got a new Presley.
Yeah.
And Prince goes, I created a monster, and went running out the room. And that's what it was. It was like a love-hate thing. Like he loved it,
Yeah.
but he hated it because he had to then follow it. You know what I'm saying,
yeah.
on stage. Yeah. It
He
was
did
tough.
create a monster.
Yeah.
I remember being in the family, and Sheila E. was new as well.
Yep.
And we would be at the rehearsal hall in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. And we would make VHS tapes.
Yes.
FedEx them. They would be disc tapes, like making fun of Sheila's band. Right?
Yes.
We're going to kick your ass.
Yep.
Do
Yep.
whatever cocky kids do.
Yes, that's
but
right.
this was all Prince driven because he wanted that vibe. So we'd
Yes.
send them out to her, and she in turn would make another disc video to the family,
Yep.
send it back to us to
That's right.
create this weird competito. Does this go back to like you guys hanging in in Minneapolis? Is that the community thing? Was that an egging each other on to be better kind of a thing?
Sort of, although I don't remember us doing that. There was a community center called The Way on
Right.
the north side of Minneapolis, and all the bands would rehearse there. So Grand Central, which was Prince's band, was
Right.
there, and that was when Morris Day and Andre Simone were in that band. My band, Mind and Matter, would produce there. Flight Time would rehearse there.
And please tell me Morris's band again. What's the name of
The
it?
Enterprise Band of Pleasure. And by the way, speaking of that, there's one other irony. So Morris would play the drums in that band, and Sue Ann Carwell was the lead singer of that band. If you remember Sue Ann,
Sue Ann Carwell is unbelievable.
she's unbelievable.
Yeah,
and
she's great.
actually a lot of what Prince did, as far as singing, particularly when he was singing his falsetto and those harmonies, that was all from Sue Ann.
Oh, I didn't know
I mean
that.
she was a big influence on him, singing wise. And but yeah, so Sue Ann would sing the whole night. But then one song, Sue Ann would go back to the drums. Morris would come out front and sing. And what was the song? Too Hot by Kool and the Gang.
Really?
17, we fell in love.
High
Childhood
school
sweetheart.
sweetheart.
Right.
Love is so brand new.
Yeah. That's a tough song to sing.
Sure it is.
Because of the intervals.
Rangy and everything
Yes.
too. Yeah.
When we saw Morris sing that, we were like, Morris can sing. How come he doesn't sing? That was always our thought when he'd come out and do it. But then we realized, oh, he's such a good drummer. But that's when Prince said, we had dinner with Alexander O'Neill, who was the lead singer.
Oh, yes.
Going to be the lead singer at the time.
Yep.
And we were trying to figure out how we were going to tell Jelly Bean Morris is going to be the drummer, so Jelly Bean's going to be out.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Back in the day. And we had this dinner, and Alexander O'Neill always talks about himself in the third person.
Of course he does.
So he's always, Alexander O'Neill, you got to, if there's a bear in the woods and Alexander O'Neill in the woods, you better help the bear because Alexander O'Neill don't need no help. That was always his thing. And so we had this dinner where Prince was basically, going to get us a record deal, right? And Alex orders a steak, and he goes, "Now, Prince, this band thing you trying to do, that's cool and everything, but Alexander O'Neal needs some paper." And Prince goes, "What do you mean?" "I need some paper, man. I need a new house. I need a car. I need a pool. I need, Alexander O'Neal. I just need some things, right?" And as he's saying that, we're kind of like kicking each other under the table, like, "What are you doing, dude? We don't even have the deal yet, right?" And then they sit the steak down in front of Alex, and he goes, "Now, y'all excuse me while I throw down on this here steak." And he starts eating. Prince and Morris walk out. We're like, "We're done.
Yeah.
We're done," right? The next day, Prince calls Terry, and he goes, "Alexander O'Neal is out. Morris is the singer. Jellybean's the drummer. Practice tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Wow. For real, that's how it
For
happened.
real, that's exactly what happened. And the next day, we're rehearsing, and the time is born, basically at that point. Alex, we told Alex, though, we said, "Dude, we're going to come back and get you. If we ever get a chance to, we're going to come back and get you." And I remember we were producing, Clarence had sent us to Minneapolis. He said, "I want you to produce this artist I have." And I can't remember the gentleman's name. He was a singer. And this dude couldn't sing. I mean, he was okay, but he just was having problems. He couldn't really sing. So we called Alex, and Alex was playing at a bar in St. Paul. I can't remember what it was. And we said to Alex, like, "Dude, can you come over and sing these songs real quick?" It was like 2 in the morning or whatever. He said, "Yeah, I'll come over after my gig," right? So we put him, and we send it to Clarence. We said, "Listen to this. We put a guy up that we like on these songs, right?" And the songs were, "If You Were Here Tonight," and those songs, right? And so Clarence called up and he said, "Man, who's this dude, man? He sounds great." And we said, "Oh, his name's Alexander O'Neal." He said, "Huh, Alexander O'Neal, is he Irish?" And I said, we said, "Clarence, no, he's black." And he said, "What kind of name is O'Neal for a black man?" I said, Clarence, I don't know, Clarence, but
that's good.
Anyway, and anyway, he flew Alex to town right away, and we ended up. That's how we got with Alex. So that was the thing, was we knew Alex had the talent, and we finally were able to actually work with him. So we were able to go back and get him, which was great in order to do that. And Clarence gave us the opportunity to do that.
Now we're going to fast forward because this is going to be part 1, by the way, because we'll do another time. But
Okay.
we've got so much more to talk about.
Yeah.
We got about 20 minutes left, maybe that.
Okay.
You, let's talk a little bit about you and Terry as a producer. You have your own sound. You and Terry have your own definitive sound. But when you bring in a new artist, and you're going to write for new artists because you're songwriters as well, how do you differentiate and make sure that this person who's trusting you with their life and their uniqueness will come through? What's your approach to that? And does it vary from what you did back then to today, or do you stay true to what your philosophy is?
Well, our philosophy is that we want to give everybody their own sound.
Yeah.
We want them to sound like their best selves. So I always say the analogy is we're like tailors. We would want to produce somebody, but we would say to them, rather than hand them a suit off the rack, we would say, "What color you like? What material do you like? Single-breasted, double-breasted? You like baggies? You like tight pants? You like whatever?" Like, we would do all of that, and then we would tailor everything for that particular artist.
Okay.
So that's why when we did SOS Band back in the day, it was the 808 drum machines and that kind of thing. When we did Alex and Sherelle, it was the DMX drum machines. When we did, Janet, it was the Lynn drum. Like, we would literally, when we'd work with a different artist, we would change the whole kind of production.
Different palette.
Yeah, a different palette.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, music is just. Somebody said it the other day. I loved the analogy. Somebody said that music is like a painter, but it's like a blank canvas. Oh, it's silence. Silence is the easel that a musician paints on. right? And so that's what it is. So we start with everybody as a blank canvas, and one of the things we do, which is similar to what we've always done, we talk to the artists. We have conversations. And as we're having conversations and getting to know them, there might be a certain thing they say or a certain experience they've had or whatever. And as we're talking, it's sort of like psychiatry in a way, or psychology.
It's true.
And that's a big part of it. And as we're listening to them, what they want to talk about, what they want to do, they might disagree with their record company, they might whatever those things are. We're just kind of jotting all those things down and musically figuring out what that should sound like. Right. We always want to be team players in that we like to know what the A&R people are looking for. What is the label looking for? What is the manager looking for? We like to know kind of the whole scope of everything, and then that way we can get something that pleases everybody. Yeah, and
that's
to me
so hard to do, man.
It is. It's hard to do, but it's something that I think naturally we always did. And if you think about the first records we did, it was almost a situation with most of the first groups we worked with where they hadn't quite figured it out. Like one of the first groups we worked with was Climax.
Okay.
And Climax, obviously, super talented group. But I remember when we got in the studio with them, we realized, yes, you have a lead singer, Lorena, who's a good lead singer, but Joyce Irby, the bass player, that voice is amazing. And Bernadette Cooper, the drummer, we called her Bernadette because she was like Morris Day to us, like just with her little attitude. So when you hear a song like The Menopause, which was like their first huge hit, we didn't write the song, but what we did is we planted the seeds on how that song should happen. And then when you heard like their ballads like I Miss You, which Joyce Irby sang,
right,
and Lynn Malsby wrote, the keyboard player, like we just kind of put them in the right positions to succeed. And I think that's kind of the way we look at production. Let's put people in the best place to succeed in some way, but make it unique so that when you hear a song by an artist we produce, you don't go, oh, that would have been better if so-and-so would have done it. It was like, oh, no, that's their song, you know? And so that was always the philosophy. That's still the philosophy today. I love working with all artists. I like working with young artists, new artists, and all that. A lot of times, it's just as simple as saying, they may have something that's already great, and it might be something as little as, you know, if you change that one chord there, or if you just do that twice instead of once, or like little things like that make a huge difference in the way a song finishes.
So you mentor these people as well.
Yeah,
right?
we always looked at ourselves like that, and we mentored the A&R people. Like sometimes it was the people, the record company people. I'll give you an example. It was like when we did a New Edition, when we did the Heartbreak album with New Edition, and Johnny Gill got installed in the group, which wasn't our plan. Our plan was we were going to do a solo album on Johnny, and but what happened was he got put in the group, and of course Gerald Busby, who was the executive at Motown that made
he signed me to MCA, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Gerald said, hey, we're putting Johnny Gill in the group, isn't that great? And we were like, yeah, how are we going to fit Johnny into that group?
Right.
That was, because that's, you know, so it's kind of, just a lot of problem solving. The first thing we realized was that Ralph and Ricky didn't like the idea of Johnny joining the group. But Biv and Ronnie, they were all in favor of it. They thought it was great. So first thing we did is we went into a conference room, and I said to Johnny, I said, you know, Johnny, you're really not going to sing on this record a whole lot because, you know, it's Ralph's group and that's the voice everybody knows. What do you think about that? And I had no idea what he was going to say. And Johnny said, hey, that's cool with me. I'm a team player, man, whatever you need me to do. Well, that instantly bonded the room.
Sure.
And then once that room was bonded, we were able to make that record. And we even then gave the record company, here's how the record should come out. If It Is in Love should be the first record because it's the most New Edition sounding record. Not My Kind of Girl should be the second record because then we can introduce Johnny's voice a little bit on it. The third record is Can You Stand the Rain, which was basically You Make Me Feel Brand New by the Stylistics. If you remember that record.
Hold on.
So if you remember that record, Stylistics record, it started with the low voice. My love.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da. I remember first time I heard that on the radio and I was going, who is this? And then I heard Russell Tompkins come in, Only You. And I said, oh, it's the Stylistics. That's what we did with that, with Can You Stand the Rain. So Johnny comes in, on a perfect day, I know that I can count on you. It's like, who is this?
Yeah.
And then Ralph comes in, because I need somebody. And it's like, oh, it's New Edition. Anyway, that was the combination that worked. And the record, and Gerald allowed us to kind of do that and A&R that and do that.
Man.
And of course, those records did pretty good.
They did okay.
Pretty good, yeah, pretty good. We luck up on a few here and there, folks. It's okay.
Davide, how am I doing on time? What do we got? We're okay? Beautiful.
No.
I'm going to switch gears on us here.
Yes, sir.
This is Music on the Run.
Yep.
We talk about what we can do in our lives as musicians, touring musicians, session musicians, producers, to stay in shape while we're crazy busy, trying to make a living, right? Jim, you obviously have made a life change. You look great. You
Thank you.
lost a bunch of weight. Do you mind just explaining to us that journey and what that looked like for you?
Yeah, the journey was that I was a few years from turning 60.
Mm-hmm.
And every year I would go to, my doctor for my checkup.
Of course.
And my doctor would say, you need to lose weight, you need to lose weight, you need to lose weight. And I was dealing with a whole lot of stuff. I had, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, like literally all these things. And basically everything was compounded by the weight.
Mm-hmm.
So my doctor said, here's the thing. You can't really lose weight if you're not getting sleep, because your body will hold on to everything because it's basically keeping your body in almost like a traumatic state.
Sure.
So if you're not really getting sleep, that's not good. Obviously your blood pressure and that, I can give you medication for that, but you want to get off the he said, if you lose weight, I can get you off the medications and all of the other stuff will take care of itself.
Right.
So the first thing I did was I went to a food psychologist.
Really?
Who told me, yes. And the first thing she asked me was, she said, what's your earliest memories of eating, right? And I said, what do you mean? She said, so as a kid, what do you remember? And I said, okay, here's what I remember. I had a bowl, and Pixie and Dixie, the cartoon mice, for anybody that remembers that, they were on the bottom of the bowl. And my mom would always say, you're not done until I see Pixie and Dixie, right?
Sure.
I said, okay,
the
cool.
Clean Plate Club.
Yeah.
And yep.
And then I had for lunchtime, I had a Jellystone Park plate with Yogi Bear and Huckleberry Hound and all these, right? My mom would say, you're not done eating until I see Jellystone Park.
Wow.
So she said to me, right, so you're not eating till you're full. You're eating until the plate is clean. Doesn't matter how much is on the plate or how big the plate is. And I said, yeah, and it reminded me of this place in New York that's no longer there called the Carnegie Deli, right?
Oh, yeah.
They had my favorite Reuben sandwich, and it was this big open-faced Reuben sandwich, and literally when you got it, it was almost like a challenge. It was like, there's no way you're going to eat this whole thing.
Yeah.
And I remember we used to go there with Janet. When Janet would be in New York, we'd go there with her and all that. I'd eat that whole thing because it was almost like a challenge, right? And so she said, the first thing is you got to get that out of your mind. You got to start cutting things in half, and you got to do that. The other piece of it was to get a jump start, I did what's called a gastric sleeve, which is, it just shrinks your stomach is basically all it does. Now, the thing about it is if I eat the way I used to eat, stomach will just grow back the way it is. So it's one of those things where you have to live the lifestyle correctly. So there's a couple kind of quirky things that I do. Like when I go to a restaurant, I know that whatever they serve, I'm going to eat half of it.
Right.
I'll take the other half to go. Maybe I'll have it later at some point. But I just eat half of what it is. So I'm only eating half of what it is. I've gotten rid of I was a big Diet Coke drinker and big Coke drinker and all that. Got rid of all that, all the fizzy drinks. Pretty much just stick to water. I do have a soft spot for Starbucks mocha frappuccino.
Did you hear that, Starbucks? Did you hear that?
Actually, as my son tells me all the time, it's very specialized. It's a grande mocha frappuccino in a venti cup, because then you can fit extra whipped cream in it.
Got it.
But they do a decaf version of it. So the caffeine part I've cut out. I try to walk. I don't do a bunch of exercise, but I do a lot of walking.
Okay.
But I've basically been in this lifestyle for, like I say, I was going to turn 60 and I'm 64 now, so I've been doing it's been about a 5-year thing. And what my doctor, the other thing I will say that my doctor told me that really caught my attention, he said, how's your family? And I said, he said, how's your kids? Oh, they're great. He said, how's your grandkids? I said, I don't have any grandkids yet. He said, you want to be around to see them when you do?
Oh.
I was like, oh, is that where we're at? He says, yes, that's where we're at. He said, because there's 2 ways to go into 60. You can go in the right way or you can go in the wrong way. He says, you're going in the wrong way, and once you go there, there's nothing I can do.
Right.
So you might as well take advantage of what we can do and get it going. Wow. So that was sort of the
little wake-up call.
Definitely a wake-up call.
Got it.
Absolutely.
How do you feel?
I feel great, although here's the funny thing. People always say, a lot of times they will say, wow, you don't look 64 and whatever. And I always say, well, growing up in Minneapolis, I was probably frozen half of the year.
Right.
So on the outside, I might still be in my 30s. But trust me, the inside is old as shit. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm old on the inside. So don't be fooled.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Really, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. No, I hope that... I never really talk about it. It's a personal thing, but I just feel like there's certain things that people can do, and I've shared it with friends, because people feel like it's a failure if they can't lose weight, and I don't ever want people to feel like it's a failure. That's the worst thing.
Yeah.
There's different things out there. There's a whole lot of different ways to go about trying to do it, but you should never feel like you're doing something wrong or that it's a failure. For me, it was, like I say, the awareness of the way I was eating and why that it had been embedded into me as a kid.
Of course.
That was such a breakthrough for me. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that with you. Sure. Before we get done, you're from a musical family.
Yes.
How's your pops doing?
My pops is great.
Yeah.
And I will tell everybody that my dad goes by the name of Cornbread.
Yes, he does.
He...
Give it up for Cornbread.
Yeah,
he's a Minneapolis institution, I'll have you know.
He played on, when we went in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a couple of years back, I remember telling them that, telling the Rock Hall that I must have qualified for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for 2 reasons. One is because my dad played on the first rock and roll record that was made in Minnesota. It was a record. It was called Hi Ho Silver by Augie Garcia.
I know. I knew of Augie Garcia, of course.
So my dad played on that record. He played with Augie Garcia. So that was the first rock and roll record made in Minneapolis. And the other piece of it was, I was on Rock and Roll Jeopardy, and I won. So I said that alone qualifies me for the Hall of Fame. Forget about all the hits and all that stuff. But my dad is great, and I will just share with everybody that I was estranged from my dad for almost 50 years. We didn't talk, we didn't get along, it wasn't even that we didn't get along, we just didn't talk. And one of the things that changed that was Paul did a session with my dad and then sent it to me on Instagram and said, hey, I'm with your dad, he looks great, sounds great, we're doing this session, which started a conversation. And my kids now are grown, they're 27 and 23. And so I felt like I wanted to let my dad know that I didn't feel any resentment or any sort of bitterness towards him. I love the gifts that he gave me. And I know that the fact that, and I say it now because, it's not a big deal, but I dropped out of school. And I thought when I dropped out of school to pursue music, my mom was going to hit the ceiling.
Yeah.
But my mom actually said, as long as I see you really working towards it, right? So when we won our first Grammy for Producer of the Year, my mom was my date in the audience, and I got to thank my mom. And when I walked across the Grammy stage, that was like my graduation, right? But then somebody said to me, around the time you sent the tape with my dad, somebody said to me, do you think the reason your mom let you drop out of school to pursue music was because she didn't let your dad do it? Because she didn't. She told my dad, you can't really do music. You said you're going to give up music, which I couldn't imagine, give up music. But my dad did. So my dad sacrificed so that I could have my career.
Whoa.
And so I wanted to make sure he knew I didn't have any resentment or any bitterness. And we were able to reunite. We did Sounds of Blackness at Paisley Park a couple of years ago for the Billboard Awards. And when I was up there, I was able to go visit him and see him. And now we talk all the time. And there's a book coming
Isn't
out.
that beautiful? I mean,
There's actually a book coming out called Deeper Blues that'll be coming out this year. That's basically the story of my father.
is that Andrea?
Andrea Swinson is the author of the book, who's one of the other people that put us. Matter of fact, Andrea, what's so cool is, Andrea said, "Hey, I'm writing this book on your dad. Would you come in on a Zoom? I meet with him every Tuesday at his house. Would you come in on a Zoom?" And I come in on the Zoom, and we just have these conversations. We still do it. The book is done,
that's
but we
great.
still, every Tuesday, we still have these conversations. And I went back and played with him when he turned 95 for his birthday.
I saw that.
Went back and played
Yeah.
with him and stuff, which was great. So
That's the real
it's
stuff
a great
right
story.
there.
So I also say that because I want to thank you.
Oh,
You know how I feel, but publicly I just want to thank you because you're really the first seed of me and my dad reuniting. So thank you so much.
I'm
man.
so honored. Man, thank you. I will tell you that it's been so fun getting to know you over the last few years. Our paths, like I said in the beginning of this, hadn't crossed.
Right.
You were a little busy.
A little bit.
You were a little busy, as was I.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
But then I started coming out to LA to play some shows, and he found me, and we talked, and he's like, "Can I come to the show?" And I'm like, "Jimmy? Really?" And he and I have been hanging out. He comes to the shows, and it's just been fantastic to get to know you. What you've done for, number one, for Minnesota is unbelievable. Do we have any Minneapolis people out there that...
All right.
Okay.
Good. I love that.
So
Soda.
you've done so much, not only for for the world of music, but let's talk about Minnesota in general. You are the Minneapolis sound. You are. You and Prince.
Part of.
You are. You are
Part
part of it. But isn't that a cool thing to be able to say?
Yes, it is.
It really is. So it's so fun to be able to get together with you now and call you my friend, and it's just an honor. Will you do me a favor?
Yes, sir.
Make sure you say hello to Terry Lewis for me.
I absolutely
Give him
will.
my best, man, and
I will.
tell him I love him from afar, and I can't wait to get to know him too.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Jam. Thanks for listening. Music on the Run was created by yours truly, St. Paul Peterson. Recorded, produced, and mixed by Davide Raso. Video edited by Liam Wallace. And a big shout out to our fans on Patreon who make this podcast possible. We'll be back next month with a brand new episode. Until then, remember,
The chillest